Without peace, you're only left with fear, anxiety, and your own understanding in an uncertain time. With your Bibles in John chapter number 16, I'm going to begin reading at verse number 31. Before I read, I want you to know that Jesus is preparing his disciples for his death, for his crucifixion. He's letting them know that a time of trouble is coming. He's letting them know that a time of adversity is coming. He's letting them know that they're about to enter into a time of great uncertainty. And so in verse number 31, it says, Jesus answered them and says, do you now believe? Behold, the hour cometh, yea, is now come, that you shall be scattered, every man to his own, and you shall leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. He says, these things I have spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. In the world you shall have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Church, we're going to use this scripture, and for the next several weeks, we want to speak again from a one-word subject, and that word is peace. Peace. Church, in these times, we need peace. Life is not life without peace. In our last series, we took some time to learn how to have the life that Jesus promised us. But the life that Jesus promised us is not life if we don't have peace. The more perilous the times, the more we need peace. The more perilous the times, the more we need peace. And church, despite how you may be feeling today based on the events of the week, I want you to know that I have a sensing on the inside that we're not done with perilous times. The Bible tells us that in the last days, perilous times will come. And I believe the more perilous the times, the more we need peace. Without peace, you're only left with fear, anxiety, and your own understanding in an uncertain time. Without peace, you're only left with fear and anxiety and your own understanding in an uncertain time. Church, it's essential that we have peace. You don't want to go through these times and the only thing you have is fear. The only thing you have is anxiety. The only thing you can trust or lean on is your own understanding. It is difficult to be able to move forward without peace. On Tuesday, we're talking about moving forward, but it's hard to move forward. It's hard to act. It's hard to do what the will of God is if you do not have peace. So my intent is for us to have the peace that Jesus promised. The intent is for us to have the peace that Jesus promised. In uncertain times, I want us to know that we can have peace. Jesus not only promised us life, but he promised us peace. In these uncertain times, I want us to know that we can have peace. Jesus did not only promise us life, he promised us peace. Peace will settle us in unsettling times. We're living in unsettled times, but peace will settle us in the midst of these unsettling times. I want you to know that my purpose is to prepare our hearts and minds to do the will of God. I want the heart and mind of every person that I pastor. I want your heart and mind to be prepared to do the will of God. Jesus here, that's what he was doing. He was preparing the disciples to let them know that they were about to go through some things, that he was about to go through some things, but they were still going to be required to do the will of God. I want you to make note of this statement. You're going to hear me say it now, and you're going to hear me say it a lot next year. Listen, the next move of God is not the times that we live in. The next move of God is done in the times that we live. I'm going to say that again. The next move of God is not the times that we live in. The next move of God is done in those times. So listen, I believe that some of us, as we have gone through this year of political unrest, social unrest, racial injustices, dealing with those things, while we've gone through this time of having a pandemic and economic insecurity. I believe that some of us have heard the theme preparing for the next move of God as preparing for the pandemic, preparing for the economic challenge, preparing for social unrest, preparing for social injustice, preparing to go through a change in government. That's not what God has been preparing us for. God has been preparing us to do his will in these times. So we are being prepared to do the will of God in the midst of a pandemic, in a time of social injustice, in a time of social unrest, in the time of political upheaval, in the time of economic uncertainty. God's will still must be done. So I want to make sure that our heart and our mind is ready to do the will of God. The will of God is not what's going on in the times. The will of God is what we do, and we just happen to have to do it in these times. Are you all following me? Listen, God is preparing us to do his will regardless of what times we may find ourselves in. God knew the times when he gave us the assignment. The assignment is not the times. The assignment is his will. And what we're being prepared to do is to do his will in these times. But you can't do the will of God if you can't have peace down on the inside. So I want to make sure that we end this year with peace down on the inside so that we can do the will of God and our heart and our mind is prepared. Jesus said, listen, I'm telling you about my crucifixion. I'm telling you you're going to be scattered. I'm telling you that you're about to go through some things. And I'm telling you this so that you might have peace. Think about what Jesus is saying here. He's saying, I'm telling you about all of these things that are about to happen. And they're things you don't want to see happen, but I'm telling them to you so that in me you might have peace. He said, these things I have spoken unto you so that you might have peace. Church, we are blessed to be in a church where for the last 2 or 3 years, God has been telling us that tough times were coming, but we can do his will. Why has God been telling us and teaching us how to live in adverse times so that the word that has spoken to us, it might give us peace? We ought to have peace. Our heart and our mind ought to be ready. And so my goal is simple. The goal of this teaching is for us to trust God. The goal is for us to trust God. We must really learn to trust God. These times are forcing each one of us to learn to trust God. These times are forcing each one of us to really learn to trust God. We have to really and truly trust the truth of his word, the things that we have received. This teaching, just like the last teaching, just like the teaching before that, I'm not really teaching us anything new. What I'm trying to do as we close out this year is really make sure that we trust a living God who has given us the truth of his word so that we can go forward in his will. So I've got 6 objectives that we're going to look at over the next several weeks. I want to teach us, first of all, what is peace. Then secondly, I want to teach us why we need peace. See, you've heard these things before, but we're going to hear them again. I want to teach us what is peace. I want to teach us why we need peace. Thirdly, I want to teach us how to have peace now. I want to teach us how to have peace now. Then I want to teach us, fourth, why we lose peace. You know, you can have peace and lose it. And I don't want you to lose your peace. And then fifth, I want to teach us what erodes our peace. You know, there are some things that will just wear your peace away over time. And so I want to teach us what erodes our peace. And then sixth and finally, I want to teach us how to maintain a peaceful life. How do we maintain a peaceful life? And so today we want to spend the rest of our time answering that first question, what is peace? And when I say what is peace, I'm talking about what is the peace that Jesus promised. And before we get into the points for this morning, I just want to help us to understand what peace is by letting us know what it's not. When we talk about the peace that Jesus promised, there are some things that it's not. First of all, we have learned this before, but Jesus' peace is not the world's peace. It's not the world's peace. See, the world's peace is based on fighting and wars, and whether or not we need to start them or stop them. You know, if the world thinks there's no peace, they start a fight. When the world thinks there is peace, or wants peace after they've started a fight, they want to stop a fight. You know, that is what, whether you like it or not, no matter what side, see, this is why as a Christian, you got to get out of labeling yourself and putting yourself on a side. Because listen, the nation right now is in a, I fight you, you fight me, whoever wins, then it's going to be peace. Listen, everybody out dancing and shouting, I got news for you. The nation is no more peaceful today than it was last Sunday. We're in the same world. We got the same problems, and a fight starting or a fight stopping doesn't cause peace. And what's happened right now is because our mindset as a nation hasn't changed. One group is shouting, the other group is regrouping, and in a few weeks, the fight will start back again. But the world's peace is based on, can I beat you or did you beat me? But that's not peace. And we try to bring that into our house. We think as spouses that peace is going to be if I get my way or you get your way. No. Peace is when we come into agreement with God in that house, not when somebody dominates the other person by being the loudest or the meanest or the nastiest or the most obstinate. Listen, peace is not quiet. How many of us have said, and I've said it before, if I could just get some peace and quiet. Peace is not quiet. Listen, there's some of us right now, we can't survive without something on our ears, something in front of our eyes, or something in our hand. We have to hear something 24 hours a day. Why? Because when things get quiet, that's when we lose our peace. Sometimes the noisiest time in your life is when things get quiet, because you're left with what's on the inside. So peace is not quiet. I want us to know that peace is not the absence of adversity. Sometimes we say, oh, I just can't wait till this is over and I can have some peace. Peace is not the absence of adversity. The absence of adversity is deceptive. You know, in January, if I had asked most of us, we would have felt that we were living in a pretty peaceful time. Unemployment was low, stock market was high, things were going well, things looked good, but yet there was an unsettled thing happening that we could not see. And all of a sudden, what we thought was good really wasn't good. Listen, peace is not external pleasantness. Peace is not external pleasantness. In other words, just having a euphoric feeling because everything is going good around you. Listen, external pleasantness is momentary. You know, you can feel good about what's going on around you for the moment, but when that moment goes away, you still won't have peace. The peace that Jesus promised doesn't come from an external source. You know, when I was growing up, there was a little song that said a noun is a person, place, or thing. Peace is not a noun. It's not a person, place, or thing. You're not going to get it from any person. You know, we say, oh, I can't wait to go on vacation because it's going to be so peaceful. Who are you going with? If you're going and you didn't take peace with you, there won't be peace when you get there. You know, if I could just have a relationship, I would be at peace. Well, be careful. Your unpeaceful nature is going into that relationship. If you don't learn how to have peace within yourself, getting somebody is just going to make you unhappy times two. It's not in a person. It's not in a place. It's not in a thing. If I could just have this or live here or own this, I would have peace. How many of you know that you thought your house was peaceful until it started attacking you with repair bills and things breaking down, and you realize that it's not a peaceful thing either? So what is the peace that Jesus promised? Well, it is internal. We have learned this over the last several weeks of this church. The peace that Jesus promised is internal. It's on the inside. The peace that Jesus promised is a result of having life. The peace that Jesus promised is a result of having life. It's a result of being connected to the source of all life. It's a result of having a relationship with God through Jesus Christ. The peace that Jesus promised, it's a result of being alive on the inside. The peace that Jesus promised is when I have the type of life that I don't need any external thing to fix my inside condition because it's well with my soul. When I have peace through Jesus Christ, when I have life through Jesus Christ. Listen, that peace that Jesus promised, it's when I'm in a oneness with God. It's when who I am and what I say and what I do, that it's all in line with the Father's will. It's a oneness that I have with the Father. It's when who I am and what I say and what I do, that is one with the Father's will. That's when I have peace. When down on the inside, I know that who I am and what I say and what I do, that they're all one with the Father's will. This peace that Jesus promised is when I am without any internal conflict. I'm not conflicted on the inside. See, you can try to take care of external conflict, but if I still have internal conflict, I cannot have peace. But listen, when my flesh is raging and my mind is confused and my spirit is grieved, I don't have peace. But when I can crucify my flesh and my mind has been renewed and my spirit is empowered to do the will of God, and my body, my mind, and my spirit, and everything in my life is all moving in the same direction, and that direction is to do the will of God, then no matter what's going on around me, I have peace on the inside. Church, when my mind is renewed, I'm thinking the will of God. When my flesh is under subjection to the will of God. So now there's not a battle between my mind and my flesh, because my mind has brought my flesh under control. And listen, my spirit is fulfilled because I'm doing the will of God. And everything in my life is all moving in the same direction. And that direction is to do what God said. Now I have peace because there's no more internal conflict. If you've got this down on the inside, listen, I've got 3 simple points this morning. If you've been a member of this church for a while, you've heard them. If you've not been a member of this church for a while, you're about to hear them. Peace is when, point number 1, God is with me. Peace is when God is with me. Peace is when God is with me. That's peace. Look at verse 32 again. Jesus here speaking about his own condition. He says, behold, the hour cometh, yea, and now is come, that you shall be scattered, every man to his own, and you shall leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, because the Father is with me. Church, he's saying, listen, you're about to leave me alone. After 3 years of being my disciples, you're going to be scattered. Not only that, the world is about to crucify me. I'm about to go through torture and murder, and nobody is going to stand up for me. Even though I've healed you, even though I taught you, even though I called you my friend, I even washed your feet. You all are all going to scatter from me. The world is going to crucify me. Nobody's going to stand up for me and stand with me. He said, but yet I'm not alone because the Father is with me. Church, sometimes all you know and all you need to know is that God is with you. Let me say that again. Sometimes all you know and all you need to know is that God is with you. See, maybe some of us have never been through anything, and maybe some of us don't understand what I'm saying, but if you keep living, you're going to get to a point in your life where you're going to have to realize that if you're going to have peace, you're going to have to accept and trust that God is with you, because there are going to come times in your life where you're not going to understand what's happening to you. You're not going to understand what tomorrow is going to bring. Everything around you may feel like it's falling apart and coming undone. Everything that you worked for seems like it may be collapsing around you. And in those moments, what you have to know, and you have to know it down on the inside, is that God is with me. There are times in your life, I don't care how much technology you have, I don't care how many social media accounts you have. I don't care how many followers you think you have. There are times in your life where you're going to feel just like Jesus felt, that nobody really understands. Nobody really knows what's going on. I'm going through something down on the inside. And church, in those moments, if you're going to have peace, it's not going to come from a relative. It's not going to come from an influencer. It's not going to come from a follower on your Twitter account. It's going to have to come from a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, because there are times in your life where the only thing that you can know for certain is that God is with me. And you're going to have to accept that if God is with me, then I can have peace. I can have peace. Church, peace is when, letter A, I'm in Jesus. Peace is when I am in Jesus. Look at verse 33. We're not doing a lot of Bible turning because there's a lot right here, and we just need to get this down on the inside. He says, these things have I spoken unto you, that in me you might have peace. Peace is when I'm in Jesus, when I'm in a relationship with God through Jesus Christ, when I am connected to God through Jesus Christ. Listen, not only is peace in Jesus, when I say peace is in Jesus, it's not just in the relationship, but it's what he's spoken to us. I'm going to give you a homework assignment. You know, I think during this pandemic, and now time has changed, it's getting dark early. You don't need to be out late, and you don't need to have folks in your house after sunset. This is a good time for me to start giving homework because you got time to do it. You should read John 14, John 15, and John 16, and John 17, and see what Jesus spoke to them. When he says, these things I have spoken to you, he spoke to them in John chapter 14, saying, let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house, there are many mansions. If there were not so, I would have told you. I'm about to go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you might be there also. He told them in John 15 that I will not leave you comfortless, but I will send you a comforter in the Holy Spirit, and he's going to be with you, and he's going to dwell with you. He spoke to them that if you love me, you're going to keep my commandments. And if you keep my commandments, my Father and I, we're going to make our abode with you. We're not just going to be with you, but we're going to be in you. He told them in John chapter 15 that if you abide in me and my words abide in you, that whatsoever you ask, I will give it unto you. He let us know in John 15, he said, I am the vine. My Father is the husbandman. Listen, every branch in me that bears fruit, I'm going to purge it, that it brings forth more fruit. He says, abide in me. He told us in John chapter 17 that he wants us to be one with the Father, one with him, and one with each other, so that the world might know that the Father sent the Son. Listen, peace is in Jesus, and we got to stop worrying about what CNN has told us, what MSNBC has told us, what Fox has told us, what ABC has told us, what talk show hosts have told us. What has he spoken unto us?